From the Cold Formed Steel Buildings Association, this is Cold Formed Buildings Made Easy, with your hosts, John Cosper and Lauren Toole.
Hello and welcome to Cold Formed Buildings Made Easy. I'm John Cosper. With me is my co-host, Lauren Toole. And today we're talking to Clay Felton. Clay Felton is I assume the owner, operator of Off-Grid Mobile Solar RV Off-Road?
That is correct.
That is correct. Excellent. Yeah, Clay is a cold form building dealer working out of Utah. And Clay, let's just start just give us a little bit of background about who you are and how you got into the cold form space.
Well, we're based out of Oregon, but we are in Utah most of the time because of the family. And it basically started from being in solar business. We started with pole barns, bean barns, the quick kits, so to speak. And basically, I had a guy I had to replace a hot water heater for in his RV, and he jokingly said something about doing a building. And I said, well, we can do buildings. Long story short, that's how we got there. He had got a bid from someone in the cold form. They never got back to him. So within 7 to 10 days, I had gotten involved with ACT, McElroy, and here we are. It's just that fast, that simple. It's been going on now for a couple of years.
So you've obviously got kind of a unique customer base with the off-grid customers and everything. What is it that people that you're selling to are looking for out there in Oregon and Utah and everywhere else that you sell?
I think we've done bids in Utah and Florida and Georgia also, as weird as that is. But because McElroy has enough places for manufacturing, we can do that. We offer the solar package in our buildings, whether it's just a regular garage or a barn dominium. The bid I just did yesterday was basically a barn dominium. And because we have to do a heavier than normal snow load for Utah, I always include the roof load and engineering for solar. That way, if they decide, it'll be ready for them. And this guy happened to want solar as well. So we're also going to offer him a solar package. And as far as the styles, it's anywhere from your basic 2-door garage to the barn dominium. This one is, we bid yesterday, I think, 40 by 80 with a mezzanine. So it's a quite large unit. And we'll just see what happens with that. For me, it seems to be all over styles and what people want. We bid at the first of the year a house that a lady and her husband had already designed, plans, concrete, everything. And unfortunately, he passed away. So I took her plans and I incorporated them into the ACT program and one of the other programs to help give her a good visual of what she had, and she wanted to change some things. So we have now a full metal home that's going to be built, matching the garage that he already had done for his shop. So it's just, the designs are endless and what can be done. It's just a matter of getting the people, sitting them down, discussing exactly what they're going to do with it, how they're going to do it, what they want to do. The gentleman I just did the bid for is going to erect it himself. Okay. And we talked about that more with him on if he really wants to do that, because it is quite a large project. But if he feels comfortable, then we'll make sure he has a contractor to work with just in case he does need help.
How well do solar panels go with cold form?
I think it goes very well, considering when you're engineering the roof, in the 3D program, you can put them on there. When it comes to you have that in the program, you just have to deal with engineering. And what's nice is if people are putting lean-tos on the sides of their buildings, you have 2 different places to put the panels on. And depending on how you set your building, whether north and south, east or west, will depend on obviously where you place your panels, but they incorporate very well. And it's a lot easier to incorporate a solar project on a cold form building than it is on some of the regular structures on woods buildings, in my personal opinion, because you can see through, in the sense of you can have somebody on the inside when you're screwing things in where you don't always have them on an attic or something like that, or it just works out better, and it can be incorporated in your build price. When you quote them, you can do it separately. We haven't had anybody deal with financing on them yet to have that different, but I think that by offering that, people tend to look at solar a little differently This gentleman just happens to be wanting to be off grid, so he was more than open to it. And he was excited to hear that he could incorporate that. So I think that worked out very well.
So tell me about your typical customer base. So it's off-grid mobile solar and RV and off-road. So I imagine you're talking with a wide variety of people who like the outdoors and like to be out someplace where you can't necessarily get an electrical hookup.
That is correct. First one we did. He's avid RVer like a lot of people in Utah and Oregon. I was a retailer, dealer, service person for his hot water system. And because he's also an avid outdoorsman, it just worked into where we were going to do solar on his trailer. And that just worked into doing the building for him. And so because a lot of our RVers are off-roaders as well, we were in the off-road world where people have off-road trailers. And because our customer also is an avid desert racer, motorcycle racer, he has a standard tow trailer, let's just call it a utility trailer. And I said, well, we can put solar on that as well. And so it just incorporates a ton of different people. The people that aren't thinking about a building, think about it now when you're talking solar with them, because if they have a piece of land somewhere, ones that were showed on the cold form site, gentleman in Arizona high up, I'm at 6,000 feet right now. So everything for me goes up. The last place we were at was at 9,000 feet. And we've had a lot of fires in the Utah and surrounding areas over the last 3 months. And so that incorporates, and then for the people who want to put a place, let's just say they put up a lean-to put the RV under, they can put solar panels on top of that and have that on their cold form structure. And then if they don't want to bring their RV up or trailer that's going to be up there, they still have solar. That way they can have power while they're building their cold form building and whatever they may be doing. So it just incorporates a ton of different people, a ton of different places. The beauty is the strength, not just for wind and snow, but for the solar, fire. Obviously anything can burn, but don't see many metal buildings burning in my area.
Is there a certain size of cold form that you recommend for solar panels?
No, because you can put a solar panel almost on anything, or you can do a ground array. And like my neighbor's garage, for instance, a standard 24 by 30 garage. So he could put 16 panels on his roof if he wanted to. The gentleman, first one we did, we're putting 26 kilowatts worth of solar on his roof. So it just, comes down to, do you want the building you're putting up, do you want it independent from the grid, which most, if they're off-grid and that, are going to be that way. So you want as much solar as you can get on there. The average usage for solar is 26 kilowatts a day of usage in a house, depending on the area. But what I deal with is 26 and 30. So the average garage, house, roof, lean-tos will hold enough solar panels to take care of that need. And then you just, whatever battery backup and that you want to use with your cold form building, just be a matter of designing it to fit whatever your needs would be.
I love that you said that you can get the solar panels out there and then you can use the power off the solar panels while they're sitting on the ground to power your tools and get your building up. I mean, that's pretty innovative. So do you end up doing everything, not only just installing the solar panels, but the electric, and as well as, and what kind of plumbing options do they have when they're off grid like that?
There again, it depends on how you're going to do it, obviously. And the contractors that we work with will be doing site prep from perk tests for their sewer, for septic. And then most of them are available to do electrical as well. One of the contractors that worked with us on the first house, our cold form building, he just happened to be part of the site crew and was the electrician. So he's tying in the grid from the house to the shop or the barn dominium, ADU, whatever you want to call it. So he has a backup generator, I'll say the grid, if he needs it. But the idea of his building was to be totally off grid. And instead of having propane or gas or anything for his backup generator, it was cheaper to have the grid because it was already there. But the nice thing is about having a power pack system, whether it's for an RV or a garage, is you have power if you want to build this on your own. And the beauty of these cold form buildings, and forgive the expression, it's like a big erector set. If you take the time out when you get your building, inventory it, and get to know what you have, and then pick a time to sit with us on the phone or video, whatever it may be, we'll go over everything that we need to help you understand what you have. And if I don't have the answer, I'll call ACT or send them an email or get a hold of McElroy and that, and we'll say, hey, what is this? Why do we have this? How is this engineered and what it's used for? So we want to walk everybody through their building, whether they do it themselves or with a contractor, to the end. And then when it comes to interior, a lot of that's going to be separate. We won't be dealing with a lot of that unless they want us to, but we want to make it as easy as possible for them. And I don't think a lot of, and this is just me, from what I've been hearing from people, a lot of the contractors they're working with don't do that. They just come out, build it, done, move on. So, I think that's just business in general, from what I've learned over the years.
How long's your process from start to finish, like once a customer contacts you?
The lead was given to us from actually ACT. And so I emailed the customer immediately, took the 3D drawing, downloaded it, took what he had, put it together, text them, and made a time to call him. We did that within 24 hours. And then took what he had himself had designed and what he wanted. It's been about 2 weeks. I give him the bid just the other day because we were waiting for him to decide on some things for stairs and different stuff. And if he was to sign a deal today, depending on the McElroy and how busy they are in that, and the customer being ready, I would say if they had a slab ready to go, I would say 8 weeks for delivery. It could be a little longer, could be a little shorter, but we won't know that until we hear from McElroy. And it also comes down to what they've gotten for permits, how fast that happens. Everybody's different with that, as we all know. We try to help them in that process to let them know what they need to be looking for, what the county or the city may be looking for. For instance, the National Electric Code just changed where all new construction has to be 200 amp service. So a lot of people don't realize that and understand that if they're going to be running grid or even solar, you need to know those types of things. So I think the average with everything's probably 3 to 4 months to hit the ground and start building.
It's interesting you mentioned the national codes with the electric and everything. Even out in the remote areas of Utah or Oregon or wherever you're at, there's still counties that want to be satisfied and counties that have regulations and stuff that need to meet. And that's where having somebody who has that experience like you do certainly is advantageous. But what kind of challenges typically do you come across, and what are some of the things that potential buyers should be aware of when they're looking at this?
Well, like I was telling this gentleman, he's buying land from somebody else. They're splitting, I think, like 100 acres. And I said, okay, how close are you to a road? And he says, well, I can put it wherever I want. I said, okay, how does that road have services? Does it have sewer? He goes, well, no, we're going to do septic. I said, okay, does it have power? And he says, yes. I said, okay, how far is the run from the road or that power box to where you're going to put the building? And he says, well, it's going to be a couple 100 feet. I said, well, let's just say it's 300 feet, 100 yards. I can tell you right now what it's going to cost you to run that. So going solar is very wise until you decide. So you got to think of those costs of utilities. One of the issues we ran into on the first build was the ground. In Iron County, Utah, it's like sand and boulders. You don't know until you get down a couple feet what it could be. And we pulled out, literally, this was in the city limits, pulled out 3 and 4 foot boulders out of his back field where this building was going. So you have to make sure whatever site prep contractor you're working with deals with and understands the ground and where you're going to be working. And I think that's fair for any place, Oregon, Utah, any state. Florida is going to be different. Gentleman I'm talking to down there where he's going to be building, he actually has to do a ground test for the county and the type of foundation they'll be doing. So city, county, I think are things people really have to pay attention to. We ran into an issue where they literally told us in a group call everything was fine, this is good and that, and then everything changed as he was downloading it to their site where they wanted him to download. So instead of should have taken 6 weeks, ended up taking 4 months. So people have to mentally prepare for those things. And that's part of what I spoke with this gentleman the other day on. Have you done all of these things? Have you talked to the powers that be in regards to what you need to do? How are you going to do it? Are you prepared for that? I would say he was 50% prepared. He had not thought about a lot of the things. Now, not that I'm going to always think about those things, but just in past experience, you have to think of every variable that could be. You don't want to sell somebody something and they're not ready for a pile of metal sitting out there and they can't do anything with it because they didn't know. And now, granted, that's not always our responsibility, but I take on that responsibility simply because of the fact I'm going to sell something that I want to be proud of and excited about to share with other people. So I want to make sure that I help them cover every angle, everything they need to know to cover them as they go into the build. He's going to be financing part of this project. I did 15 years as a mortgage broker, as a underwriter and things. So I said, here's what you need to look at for that. Have you talked to somebody that finances metal building? Well, let's look at that as well. Let's prepare you for those things that are come up and what the questions they're going to ask you. Not that I know all those answers, but it's just things that I can give to him. And if he's talking to his local bank, whoever, will they finance a all-in-one construction loan, so to speak?
What is the most unique building that you've ever sold?
Well, we haven't sold it yet, but we designed one. We've been in the process of design. It's changed a number of times. It is 3 stories, so we've got 2 mezzanines. It is 75 by 100 lean-tos on the sides. It has 2 sets of staircases. And what this building's going to be, what it's wanting to be for, is a family retreat residence. We'll put them on the top floor. The second floor and downstairs is going to be for like an Airbnb sort of thing. This one gentleman is friends of the first unit we did. They're both heavily into desert racing, motorcycle tours and that. The one gentleman, that's what he does all over Utah. He takes people on motorcycle tours, off-road and on the highway. They're going to use this building for that, for people to stay in, and a place also to have a place to work on their motorcycles or UTVs. So the build started out as a lean-to type product building. And I said, well, where you're located, you got this snow load, all the technical stuff. And I said, and if you're going to live in it, you need separate quarters. Well, that led into a live-in caretaker. So we designed another building, a basic studio for the caretaker to be in separately from this larger ADU type lodge. But the family itself, if they were to stay there and that, they would have a place to live in private quarters at the very top, because obviously they wouldn't want a bunch of guests and that making a bunch of noise above them. But then each room on the second floor is designed as a hotel room. And a couple of them that are downstairs, I think it has a total of 14 rooms, hotel rooms. The ones down on the ground floor have a garage door, so to speak, either a sliding door or garage door, where they can not only stay in their room, also have their bike, if that's what they have, in their room as well, but access to the outside. So I'd have to say that right now, that's the most unique structure we're working on. If we get to do it, that would be great.
It's definitely a fascinating project. It's interesting how that evolved and changed, and how Cold Form was able to meet all the different needs as they kind of came into it. So it's interesting to hear about that.
You bring up a good point there, because these people used to do pole barns. And when they seen their friend's building that we were doing, they went, oh, we need to look at Cold Form. And they found out it was going to be cheaper by about $200,000.
Wow. Yeah, that's another thing too, is just the more I see people walk in and they look at a cold form building who are thinking about building something, it's always eye-opening. I think I've told this story before. I took my niece and her husband to look at a building that was under construction, and they're looking at building some just little barn doors and ADUs and stuff to rent out on Airbnb, and his face lit up. He was just like, oh, I could build these. And a lot of people do. If depending on the size of the building, it's fairly simple for somebody who hasn't done one, as long as you follow the directions and watch the videos and the installation manuals. It's fairly easy to figure out how to put them together.
That brings up the lady that her husband had passed away. She goes, "What can you do this for?" And I said, "Well, how much of it do you want us to do?" She goes, "Well, I want to finish it." Now, she's a hands-on person. Okay. I said, "So you want us to do interior wall and all these different things?" And she goes, "Well, I can do all of that." And I said, "Well, because you're going to have rooms in that, we can actually, do the interior walls. You can sheetrock, you can do all of that, but let's do the structure for you. That way, that heavy part is out of the way, but that part's out of the way, and you can sheetrock and do those things while you're living in it." And that was her biggest thing, is she gets to put her spin on it, her ways, as her and her husband would have done, because they would have finished it together, obviously. So yeah, you make a good point. It's a big erector set, and it does take a little foresight, sit down, think about what you're going to do. And at the same time, once you start doing it, I figure the first 3 or 4 days, depending on the build, you'll be an expert by your time you're done, at least for your project anyway.
Clay, what advice would you give somebody if they were looking to build a building, if they were comparing post frame to steel, and in particular, let's talk about being out in the desert, being up on a mountain or something like that. What would be your just your elevator pitch as to why they need to build with steel instead of wood?
From being from Oregon and dealing with wood for so many years, the dry rot aspect, the wetness aspect, and everything. Pole barns are great; they work good. We've done them. Steel, done correctly, I think is going to be much better in the long run. Cost-wise, it's going to, even if they were equal in costs, be much better in the end. You can keep them the way they are. You can frame them in. I think the biggest thing people really need to look at, no matter where you're getting the bid from, is ask the questions. Be aware of where you're going to build these things, because the ground may look perfect, but look around the areas. This is one thing we've noticed, especially in both Oregon and Utah. Some of these higher elevation properties and that need to think about rain runoff, snow runoff, slides and different things. Is that ground stable? It doesn't matter the type of building you're going to put on it. Is it stable enough to hold whatever you're going to put there? Can you prepare it in the proper way? And don't be afraid to ask the questions. If we get a quote, I want you to ask those questions. I'm going to ask you those questions. Have you thought about all these things? And with some of the codes changing, I think it's really important. I've talked to a number of builders that have built in the Utah area and the St. George area. And because I have family in those areas, I wouldn't be building on the sand in those areas. So, and it's just that type of ground that's there. And I think that's probably one of the most important things is look at your ground, look at how your site's going to be prepared, whether it's just a simple lean-to to put your RV in if you're going to your property, or you're going to be building a full barn-dominium. The build is easy in the sense of what you want to do to a point. The hardest part is all the infrastructure that people really don't think about and see. They see this wonderful-looking structure, but they haven't thought about everything else. And I don't know. I don't think there's much difference in a stick built versus a steel built as far as preparing for things. You still have to do the same type of prep work. Concrete may be a little different for the steel as far as anchoring and that, but you still have to, don't be afraid to ask the questions, because you're going to have a heck of a structure once you get a cold form building if you just take the basic steps. And I think that for me, and this is what I'm reading online and hearing from people, they're not given that help. Everybody wants to sell a building. I'm no different in that area. But it doesn't help me later down the road for that customer. Even if they don't build something, they may have somebody else that want it. If I don't help them with everything possible that I can help them with. And I may not get the build. That's fine. But at least I did my due diligence to help provide them everything they needed possible to make that dream or next step, just adding something to their property already, barn or whatever it may be. I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen in, my short 60 plus years and dealing with sales of products in general is communication and information. even though the internet has plenty of a lot of information, we lose contact with our customers because of that. And somebody doesn't want to talk to me anymore on stuff, that's fine. They can search and research and that, but I'll be here if you have questions and, didn't get your answers. I'll provide you everything I can, or somebody that, if I don't know it, I'll get somebody that does.
That's great. Clay, thank you so much for your time today. We've been talking with Clay Felton with Off-Grid Mobile Solar and RV Off-Road. Clay, what's your website address if somebody wants to look you up and they're looking for a cold form building somewhere way out in the middle of nowhere, whether it's Arizona, Utah, or even Florida?
www.offgridmobile.com. We're trying to set up a new page. We have a landing page there where you can scroll down, and it has a place where you can click the link and go and build your own building, and it'll come over to us and we can help you with a quote. Numbers and emails on there to contact us. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, a couple others we're trying to look at getting on, but those are the main ones we're on right now. So we did update some pictures and things on there the other day, and just put in Off-Grid. We should pop up there somewhere.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. My name is John Cosper. For myself and Lauren Toole, you've been listening to Cold Form Buildings Made Easy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.